Morning, everybody. Happy Tu B'Shvat. Thank you for joining us. Debbie, thank you for making the cloud accessible. Thank you very much. We will continue with chapter 14, verse 15. Moshe tells the Jewish people, let's just wait here at the sea and Hashem will help us. And Hashem says to Moshe, what are you shouting to me for? Tell the Jewish people to go. So it was a very interesting passage. We were talking about it yesterday. So the first pshat the Ramban is saying, really based on the Ibn Ezra, is that Hashem is saying to Moshe, it's not the time for them to daven. You should be telling them to go. Continuing with the Ramban, about 5 lines into the Ramban and Pasuk Tesvav, V'Rabboseinu Amru, Shayam Moshe Tzoik B'Spalo. See, the Ibn Ezra said that Moshe really wasn't calling to God. We don't see that Moshe was calling to God, but God speaking to Moshe, what are you calling to me for as the proxy for Bnei Yisrael? Meaning, what's Bnei Yisrael calling to me for? The Medrash says, no, Moshe was davening too. And the Ramban says that makes a lot of sense to assume that Moshe was davening, even though it doesn't say so explicitly in the pasuk. Kilo yada mayase, because he didn't know what to do. So of course he's davening. What do you mean he doesn't know what to do? God said to him, I'll be glorified over Paro. So obviously something great is going to happen. Says the Ramban, you know, I know something great's going to happen. I believe something great's going to happen, but I have no idea what button I'm supposed to press now. How am I supposed to bring that about? Am I supposed to bring that about? What am I supposed to do? Because Moshe's there by the water, and the adversary is catching up to him. So Moshe is davening that Hashem should tell him what to do. Says the Ramban. That's what it means. Why are you calling to me? You don't have to daven, oh Hashem, please help. Just ask. What should we do? This is not a time for pleading with God. This is actually a time for just, dear God, what's next? That's all you need to do. You don't have to be crying out. This is clearly all part of the plan. I told you I was going to be glorified over Paro now. So just ask me what to do. I'll tell you. Want to know what to do? I'll tell you what to do. That's how the Ramban is explaining the pasuk based on the Medrash. So it's either a criticism of why the Bnei Yisrael standing there, you should tell them to go, or Moshe, why are you like pulling out the Tehillim and begging me for help? Just ask me what to do. You know that there's a plan. For those Sibra Kotzot Tzakas Moshe, if Moshe indeed cried out to God, why doesn't the Torah recount that Moshe cried out to God? It says you b'chlal Yisrael. Because it says the Jewish people cried to God. So Moshe is a member of the Jewish people. He also cried to God. That's the Ramban's pshat. It's a very interesting sforno over here. Sforno on pasuk tesvav. Ma titzaki lai. Ki amnam hoya b'chlal vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael Hashem. Similar to what the Ramban just said. Sforno says that Moshe clearly was calling to God because he's part of the group of Bnei Yisrael that's calling to God. Amnam. Tzakas Moshe lo haisa miras paro v'chelo. Says the Sforno. Moshe's crying is not, or Moshe's crying out to God is not because he's afraid of Paro. Presumably the Jewish people are afraid of Paro. That's not why Moshe's crying out to God. He told the Jewish people that the Egyptians would fall. It's 2 psukim ago. Moshe Rabbeinu says you're not going to ever see them again. God's going to fight for you. Moshe Rabbeinu's not worried. So what's he crying out to God for? He's crying out to God about the Jews. You know, the Jewish people said, what, did you need to take us here to die? Says the Sforno, Moshe intuits that they're supposed to go into the sea. But these people, the moment the going gets tough, they're complaining to him. They're criticizing him. He's not going to be able to convince these people to go into the sea. So that's why Moshe's down with Hashem. How am I going to handle these people? How am I supposed to get them into the sea? Hashem says to Moshe, don't cry out to me. You are incorrectly suspecting them that they'll be uncooperative. They're better than you think. If you tell the Jewish people to go, they will go. They're not going to give you problems. So very interesting, a different shot. So we've had 3 ideas now about what you shouted before. Okay, we are going to jump ahead because they tell me that at the end of this week we're moving on to a new parsha. So we have to be done by the end of this week. So chapter 15, verse 18. Chapter 15, verse 18. The Jewish people cross, the Egyptians drown in the sea, and they have the famous psukim of Oz Yashir, song of praise that with which Moshe leads the Jewish people in praising Hashem. The very last pasuk of the Oz Yashir is verse 18, says, Hashem yimloch liolam va'ed. God will rule forever. It's a beautiful pasuk. What exactly do we mean when we say that? Let's see the Ramban. Ramban on pasuk Yud Ches. Hashem yimloch liolam va'ed. Yomar. Ki hera ata, ki hu melech. God now has shown us that he is the king of the world. The fact that we've seen what we've seen in Egypt, and now we've seen this at the sea, God runs the world. V'lo shilton ala kol, and he has dominion over everything. Shehoshia savadav, he saved his servants. The ibed esmordav, and he destroyed those who had rebelled against him. Keni aratzon l'fan of lasos b'chol adoros. That will always be the will of God, to save those who serve him and destroy those who rebel against him. Liolam. Lo yigra mitzadik eno. He will not turn his eye away from the righteous. V'lo yali meyu min harashoyim hamarim. And he will not turn the eye away from bad people doing bad things. We have various we have various similar psukim, but basically the way the Ramban is understanding Hashem Yimloch L'Olam Va'ed is this is a statement. We now understand something about Hashem. His tremendous dominion that's been demonstrated here shows us that he's in utter control, and he will always be in utter control. So it's really a statement to themselves to understand this. And they built an understanding based on what they saw at the sea. An interesting thing to think about. Sforno on Yud Ches, Hashem Yimloch L'Olam Va'ed. Yehi Ratzon, may it be, Shehu Levado Yimloch L'Olam Va'ed, that he should be the only one to rule, Ve'eni Mo'el Nechar, and no foreign gods should be reckoned with him, should be considered akin to him. So the Sforno is a very different shot than the Ramban. Whereas the Ramban is saying, this is a fact, everybody, we learned something here. The Sforno says it's a prayer at the end. May he be the only God, recognized as the only God forever. That's a very different idea. Okay. Going on to verse 20, very famous pasuk. Vatikach Miriam Hanaviyah, Achos Aaron es Atof biyada. Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took an instrument in her hands. Vatitzenachol anashim achareha, and all the women went after her b'supim v'imcholos, with their own instruments. It's the very famous idea that the women knew something great would happen. They brought instruments. Now in verse 21, she leads them in her own song. Why in the world does it refer to her as the sister of Aaron? Did we not understand that she was the sister of Aaron? By the way, isn't she also the sister of Moshe too? It's just interesting. Why is this the moment to clarify the family tree? Second Rashi. Actually, let's see. First Rashi on Pasuk Chav. Vatikach Miriam Hanaviyah Heichon Nisnaba. When was she? It refers to her as the prophetess. When was she ever a prophetess? Kishahoisa Achos Aaron. She was a prophetess when she was the sister of Aaron, meaning Kodem Shenolad Moshe, before Moshe was born. And this is the famous Gemara that she had this sense that her mother would bear a son that would lead the Jewish people out of Egypt. So what a moment that Miriam, who had this prophecy all those years before, and this moment is ready to lead the women in song. Beautiful thing to think about. Davar Acher, another pshat. Achos Aaron, she's referred to as the sister of Aaron. Fishamasa nafsho aleh kshetstara nikres al shmo. She's referred to as the sister of Aaron because of something that will happen later on in the story of the Chumash. That is that when she gets tsaras, when she becomes ill because she's speaking negatively of Moshe, Aaron stands up for her. So the fact that he stands up for her So he always has a credit by association with her. So the sister of Aaron, interesting pshat. Okay, let's go to the Ramban on Pasuk Chaf. It is the second Ramban on Pasuk Chaf, Achos Aaron, Hanochon Be'enai. I think the Ramban says that the pshat is Ki b'bnei shehuzkaru bashira Moshe u'Miriam v'lo hizkar Aaron b'kan Ratzah kasav la'askiro. The Ramban is a very basic pshat as to why she's referred to as the sister of Aaron, because these three people were great people and great leaders of Klal Yisrael. Moshe, these psukim of the Shira has been all about Moshe. Moshe led the Jewish people. Miriam now plays a role. Who's the one person from the family who's not mentioned? Aaron. So we don't want to forget him. So when we refer to Miriam, we reference her as the sister of Aaron. Yomar Achos Aaron, Derech Kavod Lo. This is the sister of Aaron is an honor to him. Okay, because he also was a Navi. He also was a holy person. Okay, he says maybe we have different places in Chumash that someone is referred to as so and so's, brother or sister, I guess, as a sibling, and sometimes the oldest boy is sort of like the headline of the family. I don't know, but it's just an interesting question why she's referred to as the sister of Aaron. Okay, let's go on now to chapter 16, verse 4. Let's actually, chapter 16, verse 2. Vayilonu kol hadas b'nei Yisrael al Moshe ve'Aaron b'midbar. The congregation of Israel complained against Moshe and Aaron in the desert. Verse 3, Vayamru alehem b'nei Yisrael miyutein museinu b'yad Hashem be'eretz Mitzrayim. Wouldn't it have been great if we could have died in Egypt? B'shivteinu al sir abasar. As we sat by the meat, by the pot of meat, b'ochlenu lechem lasova, as we ate bread to satiation. You would think they were living at a 5-star resort in Egypt, but you took us into this desert, we're going to die by famine. There's nothing to eat. What's going on? Verse 4, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe. Hashem said to Moshe, I'm going to bring down for you bread from the heavens. And the people will go out and gather day by day, Laman anasenu, so that I can test the Jewish people. Hayelech b'sorasi in love. Will the Jewish people follow my Torah or not? Okay, we understand why the man needed to come. This phrase at the end, so that I can test them, he's going to bring them this remarkable thing of the man. Why is the man a test? What does that mean exactly? So let's start the Ramban. We're certainly not going to finish it today, but the Ramban on Pasuk Daled, I think it's like either the second or third Ramban, begins with Laman anasenu hayelech b'sarasim lo. He starts off by quoting Rashi. Im yishmru mitzvos hatzluyos bo, shelo yosiru mimenu, v'lo yetzu b'shabbos lokam. Rashi says, this mitzvah is complicated. There are all kinds of halachos associated with this mitzvah. They're only allowed to take one portion per day, except for Friday, the double portion. They're not allowed to take on Shabbos. It's complicated. So there's all these tests that come with this month. There's all these mitzvahs. That's Rashi's pshat. Says the, okay, I see it's 9:45, so we will hold with this, but we will discuss this more with different refarshim tomorrow, God willing. We continue to discuss today what God is saying to Moshe with what he's crying out to me for, tell the Jewish people to go. We discussed the Ramban, we discussed the Sforno. We discussed Ramban and Sforno regarding Hashem Yimloch L'Olam V'ed, God will rule forever. We discussed Rashi and the Ramban regarding why Miriam is referenced as the sister of Aaron. And we began discussing what is the test involved with the month.